and I'll be starting it up. Again, just sign in using the link tree so that we get your attendance and we get numbers. But yes, I will continue on. So again, become a paid member. Being a paid member is very cool. You get really cool stuff. You get t-shirts, stickers, webcam covers and stuff, and get to compete and stuff. We also have an alumni program we're starting up, which I'll talk about next. But this is the alumni mentorship. Hopefully you can't see the other. Okay, yeah. But this is a program where we pair you up with a Swift alumni, someone who's graduated from Cal Poly Pomona. And the purpose of this is to sort of give you that mentor that's actually in the industry, so you can increase your cybersecurity skills, not only technically, but also you can network with other people and also meet someone in the industry and get advice. But yeah, go to the link tree. The interest form is on there and fill it out. We will be interviewing in person. So if you did Swift Pals, you don't have to interview anymore. It'll be probably a faster process. But yeah, it will be in person. So try to make time for that. It's 30 minutes. It's not really an interview. It's more to gauge your personality and see who you would fit with best. But yeah. That's crazy. But yeah, you are here with Seams and logging and IR. This Friday, we'll be doing another CTF, not made by us, but a really cool CTF that's been around for a long time. But yeah, we'll be talking about Seams today. And yeah, I will pass it on to Chris.
So this is kind of just a little bit of an overview of what we are going to be going over today. So we're going to start off with just an introduction to what IR actually is, and I'm going to be going over a little bit of a scenario with you just to kind of describe what you would be doing if you are working in IR. Then we're going to move and go over some tools that are used in IR. So we're going to explain to you what Seams are, what a SOAR is, and just different tools like that. And then we're going to do kind of a dive into Splunk, which is a very popular tool used by incident responders. And then if we have time, I'm not too sure if we will, we're going to be going into a blue kit just to pretty much do a recap of the slides to see, just to test your knowledge. So, Jacob. Oh, yeah. So first, what is IR? So yeah. And so this is the scenario. You are a junior SOC analyst that signed up to be on the incident response team, thinking that you would never get called in. Next slide. But then you get a text at around 1:40 a.m., almost 2 a.m., from your manager, Mr. Saul Sulfur, saying that there is a breach and he needs people on to help respond to the incident. So what do you do in this scenario? So we have option A. You can just read the text message and then just go back to sleep. Option B, you can honor your manager's request and give him a call. Option C, you can read the text message and just use it as an excuse to stay up and keep playing video games. Or option D, which is personally my favorite, you can just cry. Like, crying is always an option. It's not the best option, but you can always just cry. Jacob? So, what do we think the best option here is? B? D? Yeah. D, okay. Anything else? Any B's in the audience? Jacob? Okay, but yes, the best option in this sense is going to be option B, to honor your manager's request and call him. Once again, option D is always an option. You can always just sit there and cry, but in this scenario, you get probably just best to just call him and actually respond to the incident. So, go ahead. So then you have your junior SOC analyst that just got this call or text from his manager and goes to give him a call. So here he is sitting in his Lightning McQueen bed with his Fumo on the side, just ready to respond. Next slide, please. And then he moves over to his RGB gaming setup with his Splunk dashboards and another Fumo. So now the next question would be, what exactly would this junior SOC analyst be doing? So this kind of moves into our next point, is what exactly does IR look like? It's a lot of logs. It's just a lot of logs. I'll be completely honest with you. Incident responders pretty much will live and die by logs. So if something isn't logged properly, or the logs are just bad and don't are kind of improperly configured, you're not going to be able to properly respond to the incident. Slide. So exactly, like that brings us into our next point. Exactly what are logs? So it's kind of just information collected about system events. So for example, you can have log in, log out, just different commands that someone ran while they were logged into a system. And logs in and of themselves are just pretty much raw data that has to be interpreted to actually tell a story. So if you just have logs, it's pretty much meaningless, and it requires an actual person or some sort of software to interpret them and figure out what exactly does this mean. Because you can just see, like, if a log is just sitting in a file and it's like, oh, someone logged in, that is pretty much meaningless unless you actually like look at it and then pretty much extrapolate meaning from the logs. And another thing about logs is that they are a big target for malicious actors due to them pretty much being the only way for a person or incident responder to view what happened, because unfortunately we don't have time machines, so we can't just go back to when it happened. We have to rely on these logs. Therefore, if a malicious actor is on the system, they're going to be doing a lot of either like evasion techniques to avoid logging, or they may even just target different logging servers. Therefore, incident responders can't really get a good idea of what they did when they're on the system. So this brings us into different types of logs. So there's a lot of different types of logs, but these are just kind of like the big four. So we have authentication logs, is pretty much just who logged in. So this is just like, oh, the user Jacob logged in from this IP using like this form of authentication. So that it would be an example of an authentication log. There's event log. So it's pretty much what did Jacob do when he was logged onto the system, and pretty much like different commands that he may have ran, what he interacted with while on the system. There's also access logs, which is pretty much just what did they access when they were logged into the system. So if Jacob like was SSH'd into a Linux machine and he was like browsing different directories, it could show up as that. Normally access logs will be for mainly websites. So you can see, oh, this person from this IP was able to hit like X endpoint. They're very useful, especially for like RVB competitions, to see if a red teamer is like hitting just a random endpoint that could possibly be a web shell. And then finally, there are error logs, not as important, but it's really helpful for debugging to pretty much figure out what exactly went wrong. So if you were standing up a service and something went wrong, you could pretty much just go into the error logs and figure out, okay, what caused like either the program to crash or just not execute properly. And where do you find these logs? So it differs from Windows to Linux. So in Windows, the big thing is going to be Event Viewer. Pretty much this is where a bunch of different data is stored. And you can either use Event Viewer, or if you want to export the logs out, you can go to C Windows System 32 WinEVT logs. That's pretty much just where Event Viewer pulls from to analyze and just look at logs. And Linux, it's a lot simpler. You can pretty much just do basic terminal text parsing with like cat, grep, and awk, and just other commands. They have I would say a lot less data in them, but they are easier to look at just if you only have terminal access. And these are just found in a variety of places within /var/log. So you'll have like /var/log, auth.log, you will have like Apache 2 and then access.log, and there's even like a bunch of other logs in there. I really encourage you to just try to maybe spin something up and then just look at what gets logged with it. So for example, Apache 2, which is a very common web server, you can pretty much see with access.log anyone that hits like anything within, or pretty much if anyone accesses anything within that web page or website, you can see what exactly they accessed and where they came from. So next, this brings us into syslog, which is pretty much just a standardized format for logs. The big thing with syslog is it allows forwarding to a centralized location. So you can pretty much have a network of machines all forwarding their logs to one centralized server. So you don't have to analyze logs on a bunch of different machines. You can just have them all forward to one centralized server and then analyze them from there. And another big thing that syslog does is it has severity level. So you have severity level, I believe it's 0 through 7. So 0 being the most critical and 7 just being like basic informational logs. Next slide, Jacob. And this is like one quote that honestly changed my life when thinking about incident response is the only thing you need to remember about IR is Cotton Eye Joe. And it's just pretty much where do they come from and where do they go? So if you are like on an incident response engagement, those are really the two main questions you should be like seeking to answer. How did they get into the system? And once they're in the system, where did they go from there? So they may do some different forms of lateral movement to get deeper within the network, or they may just be exfilling data. So though when you are doing incident response, just keep those two questions in mind because it can get pretty complex once you get into like a lot more advanced like incident response techniques. But just remember those two questions in the back of your head. Those are the main ones you should be seeking to answer. And next slide. And now I'm going to give it to Karina to talk about some different incident response tools.
So we covered a lot of like logs, but how exactly are we going to process them and what do we do with them? So one of the tools that we can use to kind of understand these logs is SIEM. So a SIEM basically stands for Security Information and Events Management. And basically what this tool does is it collects data from all different kinds of sources. So all of the logs that we mentioned before, it takes this data and then kind of analyzes it to discover and detect any threats. And then through those threats that it detected, it will then go and investigate them. So basically you can think of the logs that Justin was talking about kind of as like a footprint. So we kind of are using the logs to track what the attacker did and where they went. So you might be asking like, what kind of stuff does it track and what can we get from those logs? So we can see like, for example, who SSH'd into our machine, what users were active, what processes were running, what applications were running, and all this information can help us track what exactly happened during the incident. So a SOAR is a different kind of tool that we can use. So basically there's 3 different parts of the SOAR. So there's security orchestration automation, security incident response platforms, and threat intelligence platforms. So SOARs and SIEMs are very, very similar, but the biggest difference between SOAR and a SIEM is automation. So for a SIEM, it involves a lot of human interaction. So someone actually has to like analyze the incident and all the logs that were given and kind of process it. But with the SOAR, it's automated. So it automatically kind of creates a workflow for the IR analyst to kind of follow, right? So it's a lot easier for us as incident responders to use like the information that we get from a SOAR to process and understand the incident without like obviously any human error, because sometimes we might mistake something that is actually, you know, a threat for something that might not seem like a threat. But with the automation, it can make it a lot easier. So again, what's the difference between a SIEM and a SOAR? So a SIEM just basically gets the logs and just kind of reads them, right? It just creates an event. But a SOAR not only gets data from logs, but it also gets data from larger data sets. So it also pulls in information from third-party resources and also other endpoint security platforms to create a bigger picture of the actual incident that actually happened. So you get kind of a full picture instead of just kind of a small like image, but just the events and the logs that you have on hand. Again, there's automation in SOARs and human interaction with SIEMs. So it makes the process a lot easier and a lot faster, and also reduces the amount of human error that can possibly occur. And SIEMs only do event reporting. So the logs that we get just create an event and you have to like go through it and analyze it yourself. But with the SOAR, not only does it kind of, you know, do the events and reports on it, but it tends to prioritize them in order of importance. So that way you know exactly what to do and like how to prioritize each alert, which alerts are the most important, how you can tackle each one a lot quicker. So another tool that we can use are IDS, or intrusion detection systems. So basically what these do is they filter through the traffic and they create any alerts when any malicious or suspicious traffic is, in your network or in your host. So there are two kinds of IDSs. There's the host-based IDS and there's a network-based IDS. So host-based is kind of what the name implies. It's only on your host machine. So if you have a laptop, you would have your host-based IDS only on your machine, right? It wouldn't be able to have it on like multiple machines at once. That would only be on your machine solely, and it would only protect against internal and external threats on your machine. So it's limited to your host. There are also two types of host-based IDSs. There's signature IDSs, which basically use patterns to detect any threats or alerts that happen. And then there's anomaly-based IDSs, which uses more kind of machine learning to filter and detect any alerts. But because it's machine learning, it can also result in false positives because it's not perfect. So it can obviously sometimes be a false positive, but that might also be a good thing because you kind of see that it is filtering for everything and it is picking up on at least any suspicious events that are happening. Then there's a network-based IDS. So kind of also what the name implies, it is on your entire network. So this will basically analyze any traffic that is going into your network and see, if it's malicious or if it's not malicious, if it's okay to be actually going into your network. So another type of IDS, an IDS, similar to the IDS in signature-based for hosts. It's also signature-based, so it obviously looks for patterns, but there's a stable protocol one. So basically, it kind of looks at the normal traffic that is in your network normally. Also, if you normally have people like accessing certain websites or people that are RDPing into your machines normally, it will notice that and it will not really flag it. So it kind of compares the normal traffic to anything that's kind of outside of the normal. So there's also intrusion prevention systems, or IPS. So it's kind of the opposite of IDS, but intrusion prevention systems are more active. So they actively take measures to prevent any malicious activity to happen, right? So basically, it will filter out traffic and it's placed directly in flow of it. So it's like actively getting all the traffic and analyzing it and also taking action against it. So you might be thinking, what action does it actually take? So basically, if it sees any malicious traffic, it'll like drop a packet, it'll reconfigure any firewall rules that need to be reconfigured. So that way that traffic is no longer like coming into your network. It'll just block the connection entirely. So it's more active than IDS because an IDS really only just kind of creates an alert. So it just tells you like, hey, there's something going on, you should probably look at it. But an IPS is more like, there's something going on, we already took care of it. So it's not going to be happening anymore.
Crazy. Hello.
Hi, Jacob.
Wait. Anyways, hello, I'm Jacob. I'll be going over Splunk. So Splunk is very interesting. I'll try to speedrun this because there's a booklet at the end that I think is more fun than listening to me talk. But yeah, so Splunk. So what is Splunk? It's made up of 5 core components, right? It's really just gathering all the logs and putting it into a seam. And then you can search through that seam and actually look at what's happening on your network. So for example, try to think of it as a factory. You're sending like all these logs, this raw data to your factory. And how are you going to interpret those logs, right? You send them to inspectors, right? And those inspectors will try to understand those logs and like give them source types. So source types are pretty important for Splunk. They're the sources that you get logs from. So example, this would be like syslog or Suricata. Suricata is another IDS that Karina talked about. That's crazy. But it will be sending that raw data to Splunk, and Splunk will then interpret it and put it into these things called events. And these are actual things that happen on your network. And that's why seams are very cool, because then you can see what's actually happening on it. And that's where searching and investigating comes into play. Splunk has its own querying language, so you can pull like IP addresses, which IP addresses are communicating with other hosts, how many IP addresses are accessing the system. It's very powerful. You just need to know what to put in the search bar. But yeah, knowledge objects are basically a way for people to collaborate with each other. So if you find something interesting on Splunk, you can share that with other people. It's pretty cool, and which is why Splunk is also pretty prevalent in incident response. There's also monitoring and alerting. You can create you can have Splunk monitor your network, your infrastructure, to see what is happening on the network. And if there's something bad, if you see a pattern, and you can actually create alerts that will alert on that pattern, and you can actually take action based off of that. Reporting and analyzing graphs. Again, if a certain IP address is accessing a system an absurd number of times, you can see that through a graph. It makes it easier to collaborate as well, because you can see the information right there. But yeah, hopefully I'll show you. For Friday's workshop, you'll really only be running queries. You won't be making graphs. You won't be making knowledge objects. You'll be trying to understand what's happening on the network. But yeah, so I will go and look at the CTF right now, because yes, that's crazy. But so the CTF you guys will be doing is called Boss of the SOC. It basically gives you a scenario and a bunch of Splunk logs, and you have to understand what's happening on the network. And once you understand, like, it'll ask for like an IP address of like an attacker, and like those are the flags, and that'll be the answer. So I think we're only doing website defacement. So basically, someone defaced the website. When I mean deface, it means the website is not supposed to be looking like how it's supposed to be. Yeah, so I already did the first one, and it's probably the only one I'm gonna do. But once you get on here, there'll probably be a quick start. So you don't have to take notes now. But if I click on this link, I go to the Splunk. Please. I'm supposed to be in the Splunk dashboard, but yeah, so as you can see, it's a username and password. So this is a web interface, so you aren't having to go onto a separate box. You can interact with the Splunk instance through a web interface. So the creds should be on the CTF as well. I will log in. And once I log in, it brings us straight to the searching part of Splunk. And this is where you're going to run your queries. There's permissions for Splunk, but you don't need to know about that for now. It's just knowing how to use the search bar and look at the traffic. So right here, it's asking us, the first question is, what is the likely IPv4 address of someone from the Poison Ivy group scanning I'mReallyNotBatman.com for web application vulnerabilities? So I'm going to paste a query I used earlier, so don't worry if you don't understand, because I'll break it down later. But what this is basically doing is I'm looking at indexes, right? So indexes are where your sources come from. These are where your logs come from. And I only want to look for one specific index, and this is bots v1, because this is the first CTF we're doing, right? So if I did star, like, if anyone knows what star means, that means I'm basically looking at all the indexes, and my search query will take a very long time. So that I do not want to do that. So I put it on that index. Destination port 80, because we're looking for IP addresses that are accessing a website, and the host name I'mReallyNotBatman.com. So if they're actually accessing that website. But this stats count by source IP, I'll break down later. But if you really only use this this query right here, you should be able to answer it. But if I search here, what stats count by source IP, it'll show me all the source IPs that are accessing I'mNotReallyBatman.com. So as you can see, I have two IP addresses, and they're both public IP addresses. So these IP addresses are basically accessing our website. So there's 23.22.63.114 and 40.80.148.42. And as you can see on the right-hand side, there's count. As you can see, 40.80.148.42 has 17,411 requests. So at that point, you can probably try that out as well. That's unfortunate. That was just a survey, but yeah, as you can see, I already answered it over there. But I think if I go back to the slides, I have a better breakdown of it. Wow, it's 12:28. That's crazy. But yeah, so there, the way I got those queries is through the quick reference. Our lovely Swinters will be making a quick start for you guys, so you don't have to worry about knowing everything. It's just being able to understand what you're looking at in the field. So if I go back, I should probably look at that as well. So, just sign me out. Wait, that's crazy. What? So fast. Dang, where were the cards again?
Your time in the CTF expired.
That's unfortunate. Wait, did it actually?
Yeah.
Wait, that's actually unfortunate. It gave me 4 hours, and how did I wait? That's crazy. Okay. Anyways, I will just keep going on. So there are 3 different search modes: fast, smart, and verbose. You can try this when you're on the CTF. I mean, you could start it right now as well. But what fast does is that it cuts down on all the field information. So it'll only show you the default fields. And verbose is basically the opposite. It's discovering all the fields it can. It will take a longer time than fast. And smart is basically it will look at what you're querying and decide fast or verbose based on that. But yeah. And then search processing language, you can use wildcards, and also search terms are not case sensitive. So if you put like caps, it'll look for other things that have lower caps. It's not cap sensitive. And you can use Booleans as well. So when I put destination port 80, I could have done or and then like port 443 if I wasn't sure what kind of website. But yeah, and then components of the command. I'm not entirely familiar with this either, but it kind of breaks it down. So what I put earlier was the search terms. So the index, the destination port, and the host name, what I was specifically looking for in the logs. And the other part, as you can see, there's a pipe that I had earlier. A pipe basically takes that output of what those logs are going to be and puts it into the next one. And I transformed that data to just give me the source IPs and by count. That's kind of how it works. Splunk is very interesting. Like the more you do it, like the CTF helps a lot. The more you like try different queries, it will help a lot more with understanding. But yeah, and I have the book open. Let me just okay. Very cool. Bye, Brian. Sorry. I forgot there are game modes in here.
Oh, it's too classic.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Ah. Oh wait, I should stop sharing my screen. Wow. But yes, join. Join.
Hardware, look at it's kind of like.
Yeah, it's like Kahoot, but better.
Like 20 minutes. Like 15 minutes max.
Look at all these.
At least there. Okay. Oh, let's see. I like all the hours.
Oh, I love the join.
Also.
Yeah, go on time.
Early.
Yeah. Yeah, the red team might respond.
This is the real attendance form.
No, I'm not. Oh, no. Sounds like a designated. Yeah, he's still. Oh, no. What are you gonna do about it?
True, the mic is on.
Okay, go ahead and start it.
I start now.
Okay.
That's a lot of reading.
That is.
Wow.
Dang, Jacob, mine.
Wait.
Jacob.
Wait. I don't know about that one. That's crazy.
Hey,
Dang.
nice. Nice.
Sus.
Sus.
Yeah, let's start.
Oh, it's like the brain. Oh, yeah. Heard of
Dang, Jacob, mine. Good job, Jacob.
I hate it. Oh. They get a shout out. They get to talk for 2 minutes. Got him.
Same.
I don't know.
Nice. Yep.
Right.
I'm so. That bad of an idea. What if I use Zoom? Yeah. Vinny.
Yeah. The young XOR.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yes.
Swear is a much cooler name than the city.
Yeah.
I have terms to make my DM with my mom. It's okay. I'm just DM-less. Terms are
Unfortunate.
Wait, I never thought about that.
That one person.
That's a question. I like it. Oh,
Hey.
dang. That's crazy.
Wait, wasn't that?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
dang, close.
Wait, what? Wait, wait, what was that?
Just cry.
I like crying.
Oh, that's cool.
Those 5 people really know.
You cry and then you fall.
Yeah. Oh,
No,
I'm so confused.
should have taken it. Evidently not.
oh my God. Yo, Jacob.
Hey man, it was 7.
It's like an SAT reading question.
That's why Justin like made these at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Wait, I kind of feel bad now.
Right.
That's truly. That's really unfortunate. Oh, I hate to say it.
4 points. Got that, Joe. I like that. Ooh, Michael.
I don't know, breaking my
That's crazy.
He's smurfing. Stop smurfing.
I'm not smirking.
Wait, can I?
Oh, no.
Language.
Why did this answer no answer?
Oh.
Wow.
Epic.
That's unfortunate.
Hey, no one got it right.
100% accuracy.
So final standings. Michael, do you want to stand up? Congratulations to Mr. Metal, aka Michael. Congratulations. Hello, I would like to say a few things. Thank you, Justin, Karina, and Jacob, for this wonderful presentation on IR. I work at SCE for IR, and I hope you all learn. Also, the last question was rigged because I got it wrong, but it didn't count. So- You just gotta deal with it sometimes. Sometimes you just get unlucky. But yes, that concludes. Thank you everyone for coming out. Have a great rest of your day. And yes, fill out the interest form for Friday, and I hope to see you there on Friday.